Hi, welcome back to the garage and more of the Kawasaki R50 100 project. Last time I said I was going to go to the dyno. I did go to the dyno, ran the bike, it made less power. In the process of making less power, I also flattened the clutch release bearing, so I thought I'd do a video today of how I solved that issue of the clutch release bearing and made it more robust. Additionally, I'd like to say thank you to a couple of guys. Firstly, the guy Daryl Taylor, previously known as 50cc Tuning, did a lot of moped tuning during the days of moped racing. He's now known as Taylor Tuning, does a lot of Lambretta stuff, but not just that, he does all sort of two-stroke tuning. A lot of time on the dyno, a lot of time on the track. Very experienced guy, and he's been helping me with this and giving me some tips and tricks and direction to go with doing the AR50. So thanks for that, Daryl. Additionally, there's another guy, Paul. Paul contacted me through Instagram probably a month ago. We've been exchanging emails. He's been giving me some top tips, how he tuned one of these back in the day, and some of the old school air-cooled tuning of these engines of this era, which I think is really important because some of the modern day techniques don't necessarily work on some of this older technology, particularly air-cooled. So thanks for that, Paul, much appreciated, and I'll contact you soon. So on with the show. On with the more trials and tribulations of the Kawasaki AR50, and at some point I will get to the dyno. So here's how I fix the clutch release bearing. Enjoy. Right, more clutch issues. I noticed when I was doing the last run that this lever's bite point kept moving up and up and up, and I did wonder what was going on. Anyway, I got home, opened it up. So this is the release bearing that sits in there. There's a spacer that's actuated that pushes on there that disengages the clutch. That bearing has gone flat, and the pin that actuates it, I'm going to move that, you can see it moving up and down. That has got a dimple in it now. I don't know how easy that's to see. So all that force on one area, because of the extra springs I've put in, is not working. So solution is this. It's a needle roller bearing that's obviously flat, and I now need to machine this because it's too wide to fit in there. Issues I've got, if I thin it down, I'm probably going to be too close to the needle, so I'm probably going to have to take a little bit out of here as well, just so I'm not leaving too thinner thickness of metal to support the needle bearing. Other issues I'm going to have is I think this ball bearing was a little bit lower, so I may have issues of putting this back on. I think it may interfere with this part of the casting, so I'm going to put it in, machine it, fit it, see where we get, and then it looks like I should be able to just get the grinder to that and grind some of that off and then shorten this pin, and then I shouldn't have the issue of when I'm coasting down the dyno, I'm holding the clutch in whilst I blip the throttle to get some fuel through to the engine, so I'm not just shutting off, and then if I just shut off after a run, you've only got the pilot circuit that's supplying fuel. Air-cooled engines also fuel-cooled lubrication from the oil in the fuel, so you can seize it if you just shut off, particularly after it's just done a couple of runs. So it's nice to be able to hot clutch it and then blip the throttle just to get that cooling fuel through. So I'm going to do this, then I might actually get back to the dyno. Right, as I said before, I need to take this down from the diagram. I've got 32mm there, I've got 24 in there. That is 29 diameter where that O-ring is, so I'm going to take it down to 28. I still want 2mm either side to support this bearing because there's obviously going to be quite a bit of force, and I don't want that pushing through. So to machine it, I've just made a mandrel. I've put it in so it doesn't matter whether it's centered or not because I've machined it fresh today. So that is perfectly concentric to the tool that's in the tool post at the minute. And then I've just drilled and tapped an M6 hole, so it's going to pick up off the inside. So otherwise it's going to have to use an M10 through there. And again, there was a little bit of play, so all I have to do, pop that in there, tighten it up, and then that is going to be perfectly concentric. And I've machined it down to 28mm. Okay, I changed my mind. I decided to go 29 just to leave 2.5mm either side. I figured I'm going to ruin the actuation plate anyway that holds the springs in, so what's another mil out of there, or 2mm out of there, so I'm going to go with that just to try and preserve some strength. And I've been crept up with that. I'm trying to get the radius of the tool in there, so there's a nice radius at the corner so there's no sharp edges which would raise stress. If I do need to put this back in for any reason, I've got the mandrel. I'm going to take it out on the mandrel and then I can just clock it back in again. 4-jaw, luckily it fits in there and there's plenty of room for me to bore that out. I've put it in, I've clocked it in best I've been able to get it. It's been about half a thou, which considering it's just a pressed piece of metal anyway, I'm going to go with that, see how we go. Yep. Parcel time. Have a carb, KX80 carb. It was recommended by Paul. Give it a go. So I'll open it up, see what it's like inside. That doesn't look good though. All that. I guess those screws are a bit too long. Something to try. This diagram I made, so originally it's 26.2mm there, that was 26, there's 2mm clearance, and the new thrust, well, roller bearing, release bearing, whatever you want to call it, I want to put in is 32mm diameter. I was going to reduce it to 26 and then put this at 28mm, that to 28.2, but I had to think, it's this thickness here, the more I take off here, the thinner it gets here. So I only went down to 29, which gives me 2.5mm thickness, which I think should be okay. I guess time will tell. And I took this out to 29.2 instead. So that is the spring actuation plate holder. And then this is the part I've machined it now. I spent time just making sure I got a nice radius in there to reduce any stress raising. That will now fit in there. It's a little bit of clearance, I guess, for self-centering. There was 0.2 on part I took out, so I made it exactly the same on this. And then this will all go back together. So, what if I get the needle bearing? So the needle bearing goes in there. This bit goes on top. It's got a groove for a circlip. Fits in there. And I put a circlip on the back. I'm just going to grease this up. Then I'm going to stick it in, and then see how too far this comes out, and how much I have to take off the actuation pin in the actual side case for the crankcase for the clutch. As always, issues with doing bespoke stuff. Fits in there. It does just clear the springs, however it's catching on these. So I'm going to go back in the lathe and just take a little bit off here. I've taped it up, cleaned it, taped it so no swarf can get into the bearing. Hopefully then it might fit. Right, I think fully modified now. Circlips on. Took some more off that outside diameter. It was catching on these. I had a closer inspection and realised you can actually do these up when it's not completely concentric. I don't know whether it was just auto, but however, I've now spent a bit of time making sure that's concentric. With the extra few mil off there, there's plenty of play there. So now we'll find the next pinch point when things don't fit. Meanwhile, back at the clutch mod, the clutch case cover has gone on. I've got a bit of slack in there. If I operate the clutch, it disengages fully and it releases. So I don't appear to have any issues with this interfering with the new bearing. I've marked this up, the lever arm and on the case. I'm just going to then take this case back off and have an inspect just to check there is some of that push rod protruding, so I know that there's definitely nothing going to be catching on this case itself. And then I'm going to call that done, take it back to the dyno and find a next weak point in the clutch system. Outro. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that gave you an idea of how I solved this issue. I'm sure there'll be more with the clutch. I don't think it's over giving me problems so far. But as I mentioned earlier on, I went to the dyno and made less power. I've had issues with the carburation since I've kind of fitted the reblock, and something I haven't done that I'm guilty of, and it shows my inexperience of tuning two strokes, is I didn't do a leak down test. I don't have a leak down tester, but I do have a pressure gauge, goes up to 15 psi. So I'm now just filming this and I'm going to go straight into making a leak down tester, which is going to be the next video. So we'll find out how many leaks I've got, and hopefully that's why it's not carbureting properly. So if you liked today's video and you're enjoying the series, then please feel, if you'd like to give us a like, maybe subscribe and share. So thanks again, cheers.